any stock market crash, and the health of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, her possible rise. And also I will give a couple of updates on what I have been up to. I haven't made video in a while, so I'll talk about a couple of things I did during this time. So as far as the Russia-Ukraine war is concerned, I was hoping for some improvement from April and also some possibility of peace in the May-June timeframe. In April, there was some improvement. Basically, Russia decided to leave the Western Ukraine, so there is some return of normalcy in the Western Ukraine, Kyiv and other places. But the Eastern Ukraine is still burning. There is terrible suffering there in the Eastern Ukraine and also the southeastern part of the Ukraine. And the window of opportunity for peace that I imagine in the May to June timeframe, I'm afraid it has nearly crossed and we don't have any hope. So looking at the current situation and looking at the future, I honestly don't have a hope of peace till early 2023 when Saturn will change sign, go from Capricorn to Aquarius in January 2023. After that, there is some chance, but still he will be very close to Ukraine's natal moon. So until he is away by 5-6 degrees, which will happen only in the spring of 2023. So until early spring of 2023, the chance is really very small. And definitely till the end of this year, the chance is very, very small. So I'm hopeful only in the 2023 time period, especially the spring of 2023. And as I mentioned in the past, I don't really expect Russian economy to struggle that much. They will bounce back with new alliances, buyers for the oil, there'll be new buyers, and there'll be new equations basically, geopolitical as well as trade equations, and their economy will do just fine. Basically, the Western sanctions on Russia will not be effective in my opinion. And Russia will continue to be belligerent, and some other countries in that region will have to be careful, not in the short term, but over the next decade. Some other countries may have to be careful. In general, Russia will be belligerent, but Russia will struggle in my opinion when they have Ashtamaseni in 2025 to 2027 time period. That is a problematic period for Russia. And as far as China-Taiwan tensions are concerned, I mentioned earlier in my New Year video, Lunar New Year video, that July end and August time frame is not good for Taiwan, and that is true. There is a Mars-Rahu conjunction happening very close to the natal Moon-Saturn combination in Taiwan's chart. So this is a really problematic time. And in the recent times, we have seen some ratcheting up of tensions between China and Taiwan, and China declaring that the Taiwan Strait is not international waters and other countries cannot go through it. So there is some ratcheting of tensions, but I'm afraid this time period may see some new aggressive event. But I'm even more concerned than the July-August time frame. I'm really concerned about the total lunar eclipse of November 8th. It is really ominous for Taiwan. At the time of this eclipse, Sun, Moon, Rahu and Ketu will be extremely close to the natal Moon-Saturn combination in China, in Taiwan's chart, within a degree and a half or so. So that is really problematic. So I'm afraid in the second half of this year, there'll be more events in the China-Taiwan region. There may be some aggression, especially in the November time period, that will be really concerning.
Sun, Moon, Rahu and Ketu will be...
I'm afraid China and Russia have made up their minds to assert their dominance in their surroundings, as well as to force a new world order, to challenge the hegemony of US and NATO and to force a new world order. I'm afraid they have really made up their minds, and the empirical mindset, because China and Russia were empires in the old times. So that mindset, I'm afraid, is returning. And the times right now, this decade is very conducive for that, unfortunately. And just one, I talked about it in the past also, but just to reassert, because some people are concerned when there are small waves in different parts of the world. I expect COVID-19 to be an endemic now going forward, like cold and flu. In my assessment, astrologically, COVID-19 pandemic has lost its fangs. It's not as dangerous and deadly as it was at the time of the Delta, for example. So and also going forward, I don't expect any new variants that are severe and deadly like the Delta variant to come up. The world has been taken over by some variants which are highly transmissible but not as deadly. So I think that world will sooner or later recognize this as an endemic like cold and flu and learn to live with it instead of trying to quarantine everybody when there is a small wave or some COVID-19 cases. I think world will learn to live with it going forward. I think the worst is over. Instead of being a pandemic, it will be an endemic going forward from this July onwards. And also there is some news about a monkeypox cases in Africa, UK, etc. And some people are really worried that it may become the new COVID-19. And in my assessment, I don't expect. I think the period of a terrible pandemic that really grinds the world to halt, I think that's over. That was basically till mid this year, from late 2019 to mid this year. I think that period is gone. So I don't really expect monkeypox to turn as serious as COVID-19 was. So I will not be worried about it. And because the stock market is really struggling for the last month or month and a half, some people ask me, is there a huge stock market crash, depression, recession, etc. in store? In the long term, people who followed me for a long time know that in the long term, I'm not really bullish on the world economy and stock market. I expect a major upheaval within this decade or closer to the end of this decade, a major upheaval that changes the way we do business, that changes the way world economy runs. But in the short term, in the coming few months or a year, I expect recovery from the current downturn. In other words, this downturn that we are seeing, that we are in the middle of, in my assessment, it is temporary. It is not a long-term or permanent thing. This will be recovered very quickly. Within the next few weeks or next couple of months, there will be recovery from it. Overall, in the next 1 year, there will be ups and downs because there will be a lot of geopolitical shocks in this time period. But with every down, there will be some recovery. So it will be ups and downs rather than just keep going down. So I do expect that in the coming 1 year, stock market and overall world economy can withstand the geopolitical shocks and survive this. And the last thing I want to talk about is Joe Biden's health and Kamala Harris. There is an eclipse, a total lunar eclipse on November 8th. It is really terrible for Joe Biden. Sun, Moon, Rahu and Ketu touch the natal Lagna Lord Mars in Joe Biden's chart. And that can be really problematic for him in terms of health, in terms of overall well-being, etc. So this is a bad time. And also there is an eclipse 2 weeks before, a partial solar eclipse on October 25. That is also bad for him. At that time, Sun and Moon touch the natal Moon very closely. So there are 2 consecutive eclipses that are bad for him, particularly now the November 8th eclipse on the day of US elections, US midterm elections for the House and Senate. That day is really terrible for Joe Biden. So, of course, eclipses don't give result on the same day. It may be a few weeks before or after. But overall, I expect that there will be some setbacks for US President Joe Biden in the coming months towards the end of this year and early 2023. And also the annual chart of Vice President Kamala Harris for 2022 to 23 is showing some chance of increased influence, increased power, etc. So either officially or unofficially, Joe Biden may have to take backseat because of some health issues which may or may not be made public immediately. And Kamala Harris may have increased responsibilities from the end of this year or the beginning of next year. And what I have been up to, there have been a few events that I was part of on June 11 and 12 at Ashvidya Gurukulam in Sailorsburg, Pennsylvania, which was established by Swami Dayananda Saraswati. I took part in an event called Jyotish Kumbh Mela. I taught two topics on June 11 and June 12, a Saturday and a Sunday. I taught mundane astrology on June 11. What is the rationale behind making predictions for countries and groups of people? What are the charts we use and what is the rationale?